under a sun burning red as fire, sinking into the cracked savanna. A pale creature lay shackled inside a dark wooden hut. Ropes bit into its massive frame, heaving, breathless, as if squeezing not just its flesh, but something sacred it carried deep within. Its eyes, golden like the last light of day, now shimmered with tears. Elsewhere, through the brittle whistle of wind threading through a decaying thatched roof, an old woman lay still on her bed, her trembling hand lifted ever so slightly, as if she were still waiting for a spirit cast out by men to find its way home. Kajani. No one really knew what the creature was. A massive albino baboon, with movements so human it seemed to understand things never spoken aloud. The village had many names for it: monster, omen, ghost of the forest cloaked in fur. But to Mama Asha, a woman who had lived her whole life between soil and sky, it was never a curse. It was a blessing. A soul she had pulled back from death, a living spark that lit her lonesome home. A child, in the truest, most sacred sense of the word. Some things in life don't need a reason to be loved, don't need blood to feel like home. Just one look, one gentle touch, and you know, you're not alone anymore. That morning, sunlight fell like silent blades, slicing through the scorched fields. The savanna slept in a brittle stillness. No footsteps, no tracks of beast. Only the wind. The wind moved through what remained of life, through memory, tapping gently on the bony shoulders of a woman grown old with time. Mama Asha. There wasn't much left in her to fight anything, but still, she walked. Slow, measured steps, as if listening to whispers from the earth below, where ancestors lay dreaming, where the past clung tight to every speck of dust. A woven basket hung heavy on her back, half filled with firewood, half filled with memory. Each branch she gathered was a heartbeat, a small defiance, a way to hold on to the last warmth inside the tattered hut she called home. And then she heard it. A sound, fragile as a thread dropped in the heat of day. A cry, soft and distant, like a soul that had not yet touched the ground. It wasn't human, but it wasn't the cry of any animal she knew. It was misplaced, like God had forgotten one small creature in this cracked, broken world. Mama Asha stopped. She didn't feel fear. It had been too long since she had anything left to lose. The sound came again, quivering, broken, like a tiny heart shattering in a fragile chest. She followed it, barefoot over the red earth, her body bent like a thirsty tree. And then, through a patch of dry reeds, she saw it. A small creature, white as milk, no bigger than a clenched fist, shaking alone in the tall grass. Its fur shimmered in the sun, not the white of winter, but the white of a wound with no blood, pure, exposed, so tender it made your throat ache. Its wide, glistening eyes looked straight at her, not pleading, not angry, just longing to live. Mama Asha said nothing. She knelt, slow, like some ancient ritual, and placed her bare hand on the earth before it. No demand, no coaxing, only a gesture of absolute trust. And then, like a miracle, the creature reached out and touched her hand. A touch so light it was like dust, so faint no one but the sky could have felt it. But to Mama Asha, it was the first heartbeat she'd felt in years. The moment loneliness broke and spilled into tears, she gathered it gently to her chest, trembling. Its fur against her skin was like smoke wrapping around flame, soft, warm, alive. "Did you fall from the sky?" she whispered, as if to the soil. "I'll call you Kajani. It means the hope I have left." She stood, the tiny creature in her arms, and began the long walk back to the little hut, standing alone in the dry fields. Behind her, the sun began to fall, blazing red, as if bearing witness to something too sacred for words. In a crooked little hut, nestled beside an old baobab tree, life began to change. Not with bursts of laughter, not with anything grand, but with the smallest of movements, like warmth spilling quietly through the roof at dawn, or the soft rhythm of breath beside a fire that had come back to life. Kajani, the name Mama Asha had whispered one sunlit afternoon, had now become the gentle call that echoed each morning. At first, he never strayed far. He clung to the hem of her robe, curled snug in the thin cloth she wrapped across her back, wide eyes soaking in each heartbeat of the world. Mama Asha didn't speak much. She hadn't mothered anyone since losing her kin in that long-ago season of drought. But with this pale creature, white as early mist, she didn't need words to love. Just a hand on his back as he slept. Just the ripest banana set aside each morning. Just the way she pulled him close when the wind began to rise, sheltering him with the curve of her own body. Day by day, Kajani grew, like a tree in silence. Each morning, he walked with her to gather firewood. At noon, he'd sit by her side, his long fingers mimicking her every motion as she wove baskets from dry grass. One day, he picked up a piece of twine, fumbled to tie a knot, and pressed it into her hands. "A gift." She laughed, a laugh that hadn't touched her lips in a long, long time. Like the earth had cracked, and from it, a flower had bloomed. Kajani was strange in his gentleness. He didn't speak, but seemed to understand every breath of her weariness. On days when her back ached, he lit the fire first. When sorrow clouded her eyes, he would wrap his long arms around her, rest his forehead to hers, silent, still, breathing through the sadness together. One afternoon, a soft rain fell, the first in nearly 4 weeks. 2 bodies, one old, one young, sat beneath a leaking roof, watching raindrops fall in slow, heavy taps into a clay pot. Mama Asha looked at Kajani. He was watching her too, unblinking, no words needed, and in his gaze she saw a soul, not a beast, not a miracle, not a foster child, but a son. She called him over, ran her fingers through his now thicker coat. "Kajani," she said, her voice like a song long forgotten. "Since you came, the wind has changed direction. This house has learned how to make sound again, and my heart is no longer empty." Kajani didn't answer, but he took her hand, held it gently, as if to say, "You were the only light in the darkness I was born into." And so, in a land known only for its loss, a family began to take root. No one witnessed it, only the sky, the earth, and a soft rain slipping through a leaky roof, bearing quiet witness to something deeply sacred, that love can begin again, even in the eyes of something not quite human. That day, the sunlight was no longer gentle. It came down hard on the savannah, like a finger of judgment from the sky. No clouds, no birds, just a silence so still, it felt like the heavens were holding their breath, waiting for something to break. Mama Asha had decided, after many months, to visit the village market. She needed salt, a bit of cloth to patch the shoulder of her torn shirt, And maybe, just maybe, a ripe mango for Kajani. Something he had once seen from afar, clutched in the hands of a village child. Kajani walked beside her. He didn't run, didn't fidget, just walked. Upright, eyes downcast, his long arms holding a small woven basket. He didn't understand the world beyond the hut, but he understood her. And that was enough, until they stepped into the market. What had been a space full of life and sound fell silent, as if a string had snapped mid-melody. Heads turned, eyes locked, smiles froze in place. Children ducked behind their mothers. Men gripped the sticks in their hands. A woman whispered, "That's it, the white one." Another backed away, muttering, "That's no ordinary creature. That's a bad sign." Kajani stopped. His hand tightened slightly around the basket. Mama Asha turned to him, and she took his arm, firm, not with strength, but with faith. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "They don't know you." They kept walking. At the first fruit stall, the seller, a man Mama Asha had once helped when his wife gave birth in the dry season, stepped back. "Mama Asha," he said, voice shaking, "that thing can't be here." She looked him in the eye. "He has a name," she said. "His name is Kajani, and he is my family." A wind passed through, but it brought no peace. It only stirred the scent of fear rising from the crowd. Whispers became a wall. "He's too big. He moves like a man. What if he turns violent? What kind of creature is that white? Could it be a spirit wearing skin?" Kajani stepped back. He didn't know their words, but he knew their gaze. He'd seen it in the forest. The look of something cornered. Not rage, fear. And fear often becomes violence. Mama Asha understood. She wasn't too old to miss the quiet pulse of danger running beneath it all. And she knew words could not undo fear. She turned. "We're going home," she said, her voice low, like old earth. Kajani followed, silent as a shadow. But before they left the market, he looked back. Not in longing, but in confusion. Because he didn't yet understand how love could make people turn away. Behind them, stares, shaken heads, whispers, and ahead of them, a season on the verge of breaking. The dry season returned like an old wound, this time deeper, more stubborn. No more rain tapping the roof, no more morning mist, only wind, hot, sharp, and weary, circling the little hut where two lives had leaned on each other like crooked saplings growing through desert rock. Mama Asha no longer ventured far. Her breaths were shorter, knees weaker, eyes dimmer. At first she hid the weariness, the way someone used to burying pain folds it beneath their hem. But Kajani saw. He saw how she stood, then sat again, how the firewood basket grew lighter, how her eyes filled with water every morning she woke. One day, as Kajani carried a bundle of sticks back to the hut, she stumbled outside, said nothing. Her hands trembled, and the basket fell. He rushed to catch her. Mama Asha smiled, a smile so sad, even the sun seemed to tilt away. "Just a little tired, my son," she whispered, her hand brushing his cheek. "It'll pass." But Kajani didn't believe her, and for the first time, he felt fear. Not the kind he could lift or carry or chase away like a wild beast. The kind called death. That night, and many after, he sat beside her bed, eyes wide open, listening to every breath, thin, fading, far between. His hand would rest on her chest, as if, should her heart stop, he could lend her his own. And then one morning, no wind, no bird song, just the sun, hanging still in the sky. Mama Asha looked at him, and for the first time, she said what he never wanted to hear. You must go. Find someone who knows how to heal, in the village. Kajani nodded. He didn't know medicine, but he knew the road. He had walked it beside her. He remembered every turn, every tree. Before leaving, he bowed low, pressing his forehead to her hand, the hand that once cradled him like a child. Go, Kajani, she whispered. But be careful. Not everyone sees the heart you carry. He ran, through scorched grass, across the brittle plain. The sun lit his back like a trail of fire. He ran, not for himself, but for love. But love, when placed in the wrong hands, can be killed like any wild thing. He reached the village just before dusk. Dust clung to his legs. His eyes were pleading. He raised his arms, not in defense but in plea. He could not speak their language, but his heart thundered a message louder than words. Help my mother. A child behind the fence whispered. It's the monster. A man shouted. It's come again. And all it took was one cry, for the crowd to move. Sticks, stones, rope. No one asked. No one listened. They saw white fur, long limbs, a body too strange. Then came the crack of whips. Kajani stepped back, then the net, then the drag. Hands, voices, terror. And Kajani, though strong enough to break free, to throw 10 men, did not fight back. He wept, a guttural broken sound, thick with a despair no human language could hold. They locked him in an old wooden shack. The door slammed. Fire glowed outside, and inside, only dark. Kajani sat still, massive hands folded in his lap, back bleeding, golden eyes slowly closing. Somewhere not far from there, in another hut, an old woman lay waiting, the one who had once saved a life from wild grass, still waiting, and slowly, breathing less. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the cracks in the wooden hut, falling on a white back bent low. Kajani hadn't slept. He didn't cry anymore. He just sat, still as stone. But inside him there was a sound no one could hear, the sound of breaking. Outside, the villagers still whispered. Some were silent in regret, some unsure. And then a voice rose, old, firm, and deep enough to make hands pause mid-motion. Mes Baraka, the village elder. We feared what we did not understand. We tied it down, instead of listening. If this creature meant harm, it would have harmed us by now. But it didn't. It came here, looking for someone. The villagers bowed their heads. One wiped his eyes. A few stepped forward and unbound the ropes. The door creaked open. Light spilled in, like a soul allowed to return. Kajani blinked, stood, said nothing. He just ran. Ran like every second was one of her final breaths. Scorched grass blurred past him. No more scent of earth, no more village in his mind. Only the hut, only one word, Mama. He arrived just as the sun leaned west. The door was ajar. No one came to greet him. He knelt, like a child knocking one last time, and pushed, gently. Light slid into the room, touching a thin bamboo bed where Mama Asha lay, as if asleep. Her hands were folded over her chest, her face peaceful, eyes closed, as if listening to a long, slow lullaby. But there was no breath, no heartbeat, no one waiting for him anymore. Kajani stepped forward, slow as sunset sliding behind the hills. He placed his hand over hers, cold. Then he sat, and just sat. No howl, no scream, only his head resting gently on her shoulder, like a child with nowhere left to go. Outside, the sky turned violet. A young moon rose, so faint, it didn't seem strong enough to light anything at all. That evening, the villagers came. Quiet. No stones, no sticks. Just lowered eyes and soft steps. They found Kajani still sitting beside her, motionless, as if keeping watch over her final sleep. Mes Baraka laid a hand on his shoulder. "You came back," he whispered. "She knew you would." No one spoke. They dug a grave beneath the old baobab, the place where she had once woven baskets, where Kajani used to swing from the high branches, laughing. It was Kajani who laid her down, with hands that had carried firewood, caught her when she stumbled, held her through restless dreams. When the final handful of earth was placed, Kajani sat beside the grave, eyes unblinking, tears unshed, his whole body folded in, as if he were holding absence itself. Night fell. The village returned to itself. But beneath the baobab, a pale figure remained. Days passed. Kajani didn't leave. Rain came. He stayed. And one day the children approached. One placed a mango at his feet. Kajani didn't eat it, but he turned and nodded. A slow, quiet nod. The villagers began to understand. He was no monster. He was what humanity had long forgotten. Loyalty to the very end. They placed a stone at her grave, carved with words, Mama Asha. She saw the heart of what no one else could understand. And Kajani became the guardian, not of the village, but of memory. Some stories don't need a clear ending. They just need to stay in the quiet corners of our hearts, like a breath, a pause, or a name we still can't forget. If this story touched you, even just a little, leave a comment below. Tell me, did you see yourself somewhere in Kajani's gaze, in Mama Asha's silence, or in that unspoken ache neither of them could name? And if you believe someone out there might need this story too, don't hesitate to share it. Hit like if you want to keep these kinds of emotional moments alive. Subscribe to Tales of Black, where each week we bring you stories steeped in color, in depth, and in humanity. Because sometimes what is darkest holds the truest light. I'm the storyteller. You are the keeper of memory. And this is Tales of Black.